Hi Sonia, here's the feedback for the reading part of the mock exam that you've done recently. So for question 1 you've scored the full 4 marks, so that's a good start. And if we move on to question 2, where you've been asked to comment on the language used by the writer, to describe the effect of the storm. So you've said the words and phrases like wind lashing the trees makes you think of branches blowing side to side violently, or rain on the rooftop, which makes me feel like lots of small tapping sounds as the rain hits the roof. This second part here, we've talked about the dog, isn't really answering the question, because the question was about the effects of the storm. So I know we're seeking safety from the dog, but it's not really relevant to the question. So I think, looking at the answer that you've written, it's got to be limited to level 1, because your comments on the effect of the language are fairly basic. You have selected some references and you've made simple use of subject terminology. So what you could have done was said something like the fact that the verb lashing gives the impression that the wind is whipping the trees around and beating the ground with them. You could also have talked about the roaring of the Pacific Ocean, making it sound like a wild animal being very aggressive towards the land, or the furious waves, using the adjective furious to make the waves sound aggressive and angry, and it's crashing against the rocks so that it's trying to beat the ground into submission. So unfortunately it's 2 out of the possible 8 marks for this question. Moving on to question 3, where you've been asked to comment on how the text is structured to interest you as a reader. We started off saying the writer starts the paragraph explaining how Alex had been awakened at dawn by a nightmare. So you could have commented on the fact that we learn who, when and where the fact that he's in bed. But you said it captures your attention and leaves you with the questions, what's the dream about? And then at the end of that paragraph we find out it's about the nightmare that carries his mother off. And then you said the next sentence starts explaining the noise you can hear, which allows you to picture the room with what's going on outside. So you've gone off a little bit from discussing about the structure. You need to be saying then in the next paragraph and so on, to make sure that show that you are looking at the structure question. Okay, but then here you've done a little bit of that. You said this is the point where he switches your attention from the general background of the story to how the impact of his mum being sick is having on Alex. And you've commented at the fact that there's the difference between when she's not sick to now, and that by the end of the paragraph she thinks that she's never going to get better. And that you've given a quote where he lists all the things that he misses about her. So if we look at the mark scheme, attempts to comment on the effect of structural features, well, I think you have done that. You have selected some appropriate examples. You've made some use of subject terminology, but as I've said, you've forgotten round here to use the terminology of structure. I think I'll give it 4 out of a possible 8, but I think in future you need to remember to talk about the beginning, the middle and the end of the source, and the focus, talk about it focusing, and that would get you up to the level 3. Moving on to question 4, where you've been asked to what extent do you would agree with the statement that this part of the story set during breakfast time shows that Alex is struggling to cope with his mother's illness. Okay, so you've said here, this shows me a boy who was trying to be positive and put on a brave face, but is feeling down after his dream and hasn't got enough positivity to even pretend to enjoy his dad's pancakes, which is something he would normally do, even though they aren't nice to eat. Okay, so that bit's missing the quote. Actually, no, it's not. That is the quote there. Yeah, just make sure you put both your speech marks in. So if we look at the mark scheme for this question and look at the first bullet point, make some evaluative comments on the effects on the reader. Well, I think you have definitely made some comments on that. Because again, you said here, this shows me a boy who's trying to be positive and so on. And then the writer displays the boy's anger when he snaps at his sister for saying his mum's going to die. This seems to add to his mood. The writer portrays a sense of longing. And this makes me feel that Alex is feeling lonely and the house was quieter without her there. And you've given the quote here, you missed her laughter and so on. This makes me feel like he would even want his mum there, even if it was just to discipline him. The last sentence feels like he's coming to understand that his mum may never get better now. So you've definitely made the evaluative comments there. Show some understanding of the writer's methods. Now this is one area that a lot of people forget to do, but you have shown some understanding where you said the writer displays the boy's anger when he snaps at his sister for saying she's going to die, although it would have been good to have had the quote in there. And you've also said the writer portrays a sense of longing when talking about the food. We have given the quote there. And then, so you said the last sentence feel like he's going to understand that his mum may never get better. And then here the part where Alex describes his mum's art room and how she used to be in there. Because you've compared to what it used to be like to what she's like now, which is another writer's method. Select some appropriate textual references. Well, the quotes that you have selected are all relevant. It's just the odd ones where you could have done with putting some more quotes in. And you have made some response to the focus of the question several times. So I think you've done much better on this question. And I think it's 10 out of the possible 20 marks for this question, so well done. In fact, I think some of your evaluation and understanding of the writer's methods is in band 3, so I'm going to give it 12 out of 20